Right. Let's get down to it, boppers. Um, how's things going in the land of the mostly living? Are we all right? Cool. That's yeah, good. So basically, as a number of you have sort of uh, made a start on the text adventure thing. I still can't eat. Right, let's not worry about the. Maybe you're just using the wrong kind of hat. Um, so if you let me start again. Let me start again. I've got a bit of a headache. Some of you have completed the text adventure and sent it in. Some of you have made a start and are a little way through. Some of you might not have started at all, or you might have had a look at the what's it called? The worksheet and thought, nope, don't know what any of that means. So this is basically me sort of like walking through what's going on. I'll use some of the code that's in the worksheet, but I'll tidy it up a little bit as well. But what I want to do is, as I go through, is explain what a lot of the code is doing, so that you can either fix your own code, or it will give you an idea as to what's going on with my code. Does that sound good? Are we all on board for that? Does anyone have any Does anyone have any questions off the bat before I get cracking on that? No questions. Okay, so I'd imagine that some of you, the hardest part might be actually coming up with an idea or some descriptions of what you're going to do. Feel free to steal ideas from other places. That's what most popular movies do. So I'm just going to pull this up here. Nope, that didn't work, did it? That worked before, but now it doesn't work anymore. Let me just fix that for you. Boom. Okay, there we go. Right, so here's my why is the constructor syntax so clapped? Wow, that's a statement. Anyway, so this is where I started out. I wrote this guide a long time ago. So there might be some bits that need like a little bit of a tidy up. But do we all understand the planning stage? Is there anyone who has not done or doesn't understand what's going on with the planning stage? Do I need to go over the planning stage? A theme can be anything. It could be a walk to school. It could be a drive across the surface of Mars. It could be like go on a Minecraft server and like describe some of the scenes there. Yeah, it doesn't need to be an amazingly enthralling adventure, right? So here we are. The map that I gave you, the example map, is very basic. There's only 4 rooms, okay? But the important thing is that we're laying them out and we are numbering them as we go along. Now, the way that I've laid them out, that's probably not the greatest way of showing this. What I should really do is, in each box, not just have a number, but also have a description, or at least the title of the room. If I just show you, this is an actual map from an actual game here. I believe this is from the game Slouching Towards Bedlam, which is a very good interactive fiction game. It might not be from that. Regardless, it doesn't matter. Okay, you can see they've got the same sort of layout. It's a little bit more complicated than mine, in fact. But you can still see every single room has a number, and it also has a name. Now, I'm not expecting your maps to be as big as this. I just wanted to show you a sort of real-world example. You can see, instead of just linking them together, they've actually drawn arrows. So what this means is, if you're in the office, which is room number 7, you can move east to the maintenance room, which is room 6. From the maintenance room, you can also move west to the office, if that makes sense. Okay, so you can find tons of these examples, and if you haven't actually played any of these sorts of games, let me show you another website here, the Interactive Fiction Archive, which is ifarchive.org. We go to ifarchive.org. I'll type in that https://www. So there's the link if you want to go there. There's tons of these games for you to try out if you want to. Okay, but I'm just showing you that as an example there. So getting back to this, we should, in theory, all have a map with maybe 4 rooms. I mean, let's stick with 4. It doesn't really matter how many rooms we have, because what we're going to do is we're going to change. We're going to write the program in such a way that we can add new rooms as and when we need to. All right. So let's have a look at some. Let's have a look at some code, shall we? In the document, it says you need to describe each room. So for each of your maps, you will have come up with a description. Okay. To start off with, if you can't think of many descriptions, as long as you've got a number for each room and you've got a title, that should be fine. Okay, you can always add the descriptions in later. Okay, so first of all, we have a number of rooms, right? Can you all see my code here on the? Can you all see my code? Is the font size acceptable to you? Yeah. Yeah, good. So we've got a number of rooms. We know where all the rooms are, and we've assigned each of the rooms a number. And the reason we've done that is because we are going to create a list of rooms. Okay, I've been through Python lists with you before. There's a video on Python lists on this very channel, but you can create an empty list by opening the brackets and closing the brackets again. I mean, we could have a list of rooms like this, hallway, there's one room, and bathroom might be bathroom. I can't talk and type at the same time. Okay, there's a list of 2 different strings, but that's not really any good, because our rooms need to be more than just a single word description. We want to do some more. We want to do some more with it. So to start off with, we are creating a list of rooms. Create a list to store the rooms. Okay. So the idea is, if we start off with an empty list, we can add new rooms to that list as we go along. Okay. Now, if you watch the video on lists, you should know that you can, if I just zoom in here, you can add things to lists using append. So here's an example. Hopefully you can all see my Python interpreter here. If I create a list called numbers equals, there's my empty list, right? We can see that my I've created a list of numbers. There's nothing in it. Okay, if I did print numbers, we would get an empty list. There it is, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some numbers to the list, right? If I say numbers.append, and then in brackets, whatever I put in brackets gets added onto the list. Numbers.append 5. If I now print numbers, you can see the list contains 5. If I do numbers.append 7, our list should have 5 and 7. And there it is. Okay, that's what the append command does. All right. So what we need to do is we need to append some rooms to this list. We're starting off with an empty list of rooms. What we need to do is we need to fill that with however many rooms we've got. Now in my example I had 4 rooms, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say rooms, and I'm going to add a comment here saying add the empty rooms to the list. Okay, I'm now going to say rooms.append, and I'm going to add something called a dictionary. Okay, that's what the squiggly brackets there mean. So for anyone that is confused by this, again, I believe dictionaries are covered in the video about lists and whatnot. A dictionary is kind of like a list, but it allows you to store variables according to key value pairs. So if I could create a dictionary of students, for instance, okay, I could say students equals. If I do that, that will create an empty dictionary. Right? If I print students now, it's an empty dictionary, right? But I can add data to that. I can say students, let's say name. This should just be student, to be honest. Who's the best student? Master Chief. Okay. If I now print out my dictionary, my students dictionary, you can see instead of just having that entry Master Chief, it has Master Chief, and then next to it is the name. Okay. Maybe student was a stupid name for this. I should have called it character, really, shouldn't I? So I could now do something like game. What game does Master Chief appear in? He appears in Halo. Okay, and now if I print out students, you can see we can have these different things. We can also print out the individual items from the dictionary. So I say students name. It's going to print out Master Chief, right? If I say students game, it's going to print out Halo. Okay, so a dictionary is basically a way that we can store a whole bunch of data and have it referenced by these key value pairs. Does that make sense, what's going on there? Because like understanding that is going to be the key to understanding what's going on with quite a lot of the other stuff that's happening in the game. Does that make sense? Is there anyone that needs me to go over that in a bit more fine detail? I mean, I've sort of skimmed over it. Pretty straightforward. Cool. Okay. So we've got well, we could do this. We could say we've got 4 rooms, right? So we could say rooms.append, 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 or we could just do a loop. So we could say for I in range 4, or however many rooms you've got, rooms.append. Now, I'm one of those sorts of people who, whenever he's writing a program, I always like to test it to make sure that everything's working as I go along. So this is not much of a program at the moment, right? But I can double check just to make sure that everything's been added properly. Let's just print rooms here. I should get a list containing 4 dictionaries when I run that. So Control Shift F10, and there it is. There's my empty rooms. I've got 4 empty rooms. There's nothing in there at the moment. Okay. Now, obviously, you can say how many rooms you've got in there. Or you could just leave it as it is. It doesn't really matter. I mean, I put the loop in there just to show that if you ever end up sort of copying and pasting, you might need to use that. So what does the .append thing do? Append adds something to the end of a list. So we've got an empty list here. Append is going to add each thing in turn to the list. Okay. So, at the moment, we've got an array called rooms, or a list, I should say, called rooms, which contains 4 empty dictionaries. Now, those empty dictionaries are eventually going to contain room names and descriptions. Okay, so what we really need to do now is start adding those descriptions. Now, if we just go back up to my my initial plan here. As my initial plan, you can see I've got room 0, room 1, room 2, room 3. Now I think I wrote some brief descriptions here. In fact, that should be 0, 2, 0, 1, 2, 3, but whatever. So the first room is inside the log cabin. You can see each room has a name and a description. So we want to add for each of our rooms the relevant name and description. Okay? So let's do it. My first room, I'll get rid of that print rooms. Add room names and descriptions. Okay, so my first room is room 0. I can access individual items in a list by referring to their index in square brackets. So I can say rooms 0. This is my first room. And then because it's a dictionary, I can now specify the name. Right? So we're going to say name. Equals, and in mine, it's inside the log cabin. Okay? And then rooms 0 again. This time we're adding the description. Description. Notice that you have to put square brackets around here. You've got to use. Well, you don't have to use strings as the keys. You can use integers or floats or whatever. You can even use variables as well. But if you're writing words like this, obviously it needs to be a string. Now I'm going to kind of cheat here, and I'm going to copy and paste my description from the document. Yeah. Now, you know what I'm going to do, because I don't like the way that's cutting off at the end there. I'm just going to put some new lines in there. Okay, so that all fits on nicely. Note what happens in PyCharm if you've got a really long string which is going off the end. If you just hit enter, it will automatically escape the string so that it fits nicely on the line. Okay, now in theory, when if I do print rooms now, it will print out, instead of having an empty dictionary and then an empty dictionary, and these 3 dictionaries, they're all going to be empty, but this first dictionary should have a name inside the log cabin and a description. Okay, so when I run that now, you can see that first room has a name now and it has a description in there. I've still got 3 empty dictionaries there. But another thing that I could do, if I just wanted to print out the contents of the first room, I could do that. Okay, print rooms 0. And you can see it's just printed out the first thing. I could go even further. I could say print rooms 0 name, like that. I could also do print rooms 0 description. Except I'd actually spell it correctly and wouldn't look like a muppet. There we go. So I run that now, and you can see on this first line here, this has printed out the name. So what's actually happened here, rooms 0 has looked in the list of rooms, it's found the first thing that we added, and inside that, that's room 0, it's looked at the name item, which was inside the log cabin. On this line, we're doing the same thing. We're going to the first item in our rooms list, and we're accessing the description key, and then there's the value that comes out there. Okay, does that make sense? What's going on? Does that make sense? What's going on there to everyone? Excellent. So once you've got the first room's description in there, and you've done a little bit of testing, you can just go through and add all of the other descriptions for the rest of your rooms. Okay, so in the same manner here, we can say rooms 1 name equals, and in my map, room 1 was outside the log cabin, and then rooms 1, nope, not 2, rooms 1 description. Why can't I spell today? Description, there we go, equals, and then here's my description of being outside the log cabin. And I'll make sure. This adventure, by the way, is based on a true story. This is based on the time that I drove to Switzerland with no passport and no change of clothes on a whim. It was a pretty awesome adventure, to be fair. So let's add rooms 2, which is the precipice. Can I spell description correctly? Let's find out. Description. Yes! Nailed it! And here's the description of the precipice. It's worth noting, just because I've broken these strings onto multiple lines here, that doesn't mean that those line breaks are going to appear in your actual strings. Okay? That's worth bearing in mind. And one more room, room 3, rooms 3. Let's not break it straight away. Name equals room cable car station. Cable car station. Should that be capitalized? Maybe. Cable car station. Why is that not? Because I've missed off the quotes. What a muppet! There we go. And rooms 3. Is he going to get it right? Let's find out. No, I put description. It's not a word. Here we go. Blah 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 blah. There's the cable car thing. Ba 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 ba. Okay, so there's all of my descriptions in here. Now, one thing that it's probably worth noting that you might not have put in your own descriptions. In my descriptions, I've said which way you can go. Look, inside the log cabin, you stand inside a cramped but cozy log cabin. The smell of wood smoke hangs heavy in the air. A door stands in the south wall of the cabin, so that means cool, we can move south. And then here as well, we've got a narrow path extends to the east and west, following a mountain stream. So we know we can move east and west. What I should really have done here is also said that to the north is a log cabin. Okay, the precipice, you follow the path to the west, and then it says, yeah, okay, so maybe I could add some better descriptions in there. I mean, the idea is that the player should get enough information about where the exits are by reading the description. Okay, now here's something that I'm going to do just to test this out. I want to make sure that all of my names and descriptions are in place, so I'm going to write a loop that's going to go through every single item that's in my rooms list. Okay, so I'm going to say for room in rooms. What that means is it's going to go through every single item in the list of rooms, and it's going to assign that item to this temporary variable room. So each room is going to be a dictionary. So now what I can do is I can say print room name, and then I can print room description. Okay, so the first time through it, room is going to be rooms 0. The second time through, room is going to be rooms 1. The third time, room is going to be rooms 2, and so on and so forth. And just to separate them, let's print a line there. Okay, so let's test it out. Hopefully, we should get our name. We should get some nice descriptions for each of the rooms there when we run it. And when I look at it, boom, there we go. Okay, the one thing that I'm noticing here is the fact that the strings are going off the edge of the screen a bit there. So we might want to wrap those strings a little bit, or add in some blank lines. Okay, so easy way of doing that. Well, there's two ways of doing it. I'll show you both ways. One way is if you put these line breaks in manually, at the end of each line you can put \n, and that will put blank lines at the end of each of those lines. So when I run it now, you can see we've got those blank lines in there. The other way of doing it would be, instead of having all of these open the string, close the string, \, open the string, close the string, \, instead of doing that, you can do triple quoted strings. If you've got 3 quotes to open and 3 quotes to close, then any lines, any blank lines that you put in there, any line breaks, they're going to make it into your text. Now, the problem with this approach is that it will also add in all of this stuff here. Okay, how'd I get to Switzerland if I didn't have a passport? Through a lot of negotiating and just talking to people. It was yeah, it was cool. If I do this, you can see we've got the inside the log cabin, that looks fine. Outside the log cabin now looks fine, but it looks a little bit of a mess in our code. So it's up to you. Well, it was Schengen. I mean, I paid them some money and they let me over the border. What can you say? Although I think that money was mostly for road tax. So it's up to you how you do those the line breaks in your strings. I think personally, I like to have the new line characters in there. You might not even need to do it. I mean, I'm only breaking the lines because I'm zooming in on the text quite a lot. So it's up to you to decide how long is too long. One thing that you should make sure that you take into consideration, though, is making sure that you don't start each line with a space there. So let's just sort that out. I don't want triple quotes anymore. I want... I'll just, you know what I'm going to do? I'll just Control Z. Control Z. Let's go back in time. Gonna go back in time. God, what's happened to my voice? Right, we've gone back in time now, and I'll put the. I'll put backslashes in here. Backslash N. Backslash N, of course, is new line, in case you didn't clock that. Okay, so in theory, you should have something. What is oh no. Is the stream still alright? It looked like it had died. No, it's fine. Bam, 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 bam. Okay. That really is the most long-winded bit of it, coming up with these descriptions, writing in those descriptions. That's the bit that really takes the time. The actual coding of the game, that's not so bad. Okay. What have I done wrong if I have list must be integers or slices error? It depends on the rest of the... It suggests to me that you have used the wrong kind of brackets somewhere. Or it might be that you have you missed off the number in the brackets there. Without seeing the exact error, I wouldn't be able to necessarily tell you. Did you use square and not normal, or vice versa? Oh yeah, It always be checking those brackets. So when you're calling a function, you want normal brackets. When you're defining a list, you want square brackets. When you're defining a dictionary, you want squiggly brackets. That's basically how things are going there. Don't talk to me about installing brackets. I had the best email yet regarding that the other day, but I won't tell you what it is because I wouldn't want to point out someone's idiocy. Anyway, so is it all making sense up to this point? Yep. I can do anything I want, Alex. I'm the king of this place. Aren't dictionaries just bad classes? I mean, the way that we're using dictionaries here, yes, they are kind of like bad classes, but they can be used for more. They're not normally used in this way. I've sort of fudged this a little bit so that I can show you how to make this stuff without having to get into the ins and outs of object-oriented programming. Okay. Is that a... it's not. It's a it's a Dharma Initiative mug. There you go. It was given it was a gift from an ex-girlfriend of mine. It's a pretty cool mug. Anyway, It looks like the Master Spark thing, doesn't it just? Doesn't it just? So at the moment, we've got a list of rooms, and each room has a name and has a description, and we can access those names and those descriptions. Brilliant, right? But the one, I mean, if we were to just have a look at this code one more time here. Where's my thing gone? Bring that up here. At the moment, it's almost like we've got these boxes here, but we don't have any links between them, right? We need to be able to define how each room links to each other room. Okay, so let's have a look at that. So the way that we're going to do it is each room has a name, it has a description, but also what we can do is we can specify which room can be reached by moving in a certain direction. Now, the way that these games work is using the up, down, left, right, or rather north, south, east, west compass directions. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to have those north, south, east, west compass directions as items in our dictionary, and all they're going to do is point at the room ID of the room that they link to. Okay, it's probably going to make a little bit more sense if I just actually show you what I mean here. Let's just comment that stuff out. So let's get some comments in here. Link the rooms. Okay, we're going to link these rooms together. Rolling on the floor, laughing. Yep. It's good one. So room 0. Room 0, that was inside the log cabin, and if we travel south from that room, it takes us to outside the log cabin, which is room 1. So what we're going to do here is we're going to say rooms 0 S for south equals 1. Okay, do you see how that links them together? So if we travel south from room 0, we will reach room 1. Now, likewise, we should probably link it back. Now, obviously, I'm assuming that all of our connections are going to be two-way connections. Okay, there's a lot of tautologies going on in the chat at the moment. So let's link it back at the same time. Let's say rooms 1 north. Now remember, we're going north from room 1. That takes us back to room 0. I'm going to put a little space in there because what I like to do is put all of the links for a single room in one little block. Okay, and then it's just a case of going through and linking the rooms together. So room 1, rooms 1, if we go east from there, we get to the cable car station, I believe. So that will take us to room 3, and rooms 1, if we go west, we will get to room 2. And then rooms 2, the only direction we can go in is east, which will take us back to room 1. And then rooms 3, the only direction we can travel is west, and that will take us also back to room 1. Okay, does that make sense, what I've done there to link all of the rooms together? Good. I'm glad. At least two of you are paying attention. Alistair, if you don't want me to put you on the naughty step for 300 seconds, maybe rein that in. Cool. So that's parts 1 and 2 done. Right. The next thing that I'm going to show you is we're going to get a couple of game functions in there. The first thing we want to be able to do is move the player around. Right. Now, the way that this is going to work to start off with, it's not going to be a case of us actually physically controlling the player. It's more like we're going to write some code that's going to move the player, teleport them around, for instance. Okay. So the only two real functions that we need really are being able to move and view the room descriptions. Okay, so as each room has an ID, a numerical ID, well, we need to keep track of the player's position, right? And the player's position, in theory, should be an integer. Okay, I'm just going to get rid of that. So if I say player position, let's call it player pos. Player pos equals, we're going to start off at 0. Now I've started off at 0 because I want to start inside the log cabin. Okay. Now a very simple move function to start off with would look something like this. I'm kind of going to do it the awful way. Now, because we are going to be setting the player's position here, we're gonna use this global keyword. What global means is the variable is used throughout the whole of the program, right? It's generally a bad idea, but in this case, it'll probably work. All right. There's a way that I can make it a little bit better, but I'm trying to. Yeah. Okay. Like, look, don't hate on me for using global variables. Okay. I'm keeping it simple to start off with. And when we make the move function a little bit more robust, then I'll remove the global. Okay. So we need to specify which variable is the global one. We're saying it's player position. Okay. Now, a really basic move function, all it needs to do is set the player position to whatever position position to whatever position we've provided. Okay. Cool. Now we can test this out. What's the easiest way of doing this? Is that going to work? Nope, that doesn't work. Okay, we're not going to do it that way. So let's test it out the long way. So we've got a move function. To start off with, this time we're going to say print rooms, but we're going to use player position rather than specifying a number. And we're going to specify the. I won't bother with the description. We'll just do the name. Okay. So we should start off in the inside the log cabin, and if I then say move to position 1, and then I print the same message out again, it should now give us a different position. Okay. If I run that code now, you can see we start off inside the log cabin. That's this point, because player position starts off at 0. Really, I shouldn't define it there. I should probably define it up here, just to keep things tidy, and the function should be defined further up. But okay, we're doing this as we go along. Okay, so yeah, I mean, if you want, Tommy, yeah, if you want to sort of like, you know, talk up the big programming game and all that, and talk about, like, you know, what's good and what's bad, and all of this. I mean, we can play that game if you want. Okay, if you want to go down that road, I'm more than happy to go down that road. Yeah, how far down that road do you want to go? Good. You are right, though. Tommy is right. Using global variables is bad, and also using break to exit a loop is bad. But it still depends on the context in which it's used. Okay. Anyway, does this make sense, though? What's going on here? The fact that I start off inside the log cabin because my player position is 0, and I've copied and pasted that code there. Right, I could move again. I could say move. Let's move to room 3, okay, and then print that code out again. That should print out an entirely different place. Room 3, I think, is the cable car station. Okay, if I run that, there we go. We've got inside the log cabin, we've got outside the log cabin, and we've got the cable car station. So now we can keep track of the player's position in our map, and also we have this function which is going to move the player. But it's not really a great function at the moment, because it teleports the player. What we really need to be able to do is check to see if the player is actually able to move to that position, and then move them. I mean, there's another problem as well, right? Because there's no validation here, what's going to happen if I do move? If I do move 4, tell me in the chat what is going to happen when I run this code. Someone says move right. Someone else says nothing. To help you out a little bit, let me show you my map. There's my map. Yeah, error, because there's only 4 rooms. For bonus points, can you tell me what kind of error it's going to be? Bang on. List index out of range. Okay, if I run that code now, let's just prove that. Boom, there it is. Oh no! Index error, list index out of range. We can't go there. There is no room 4. Okay, what if I did that? What if I put move -1? Is that going to give me an error? What's going to happen there? No error. Maybe. Anyone be more specific? Don't think anyone's got the correct answer yet. You're all having good guesses. It goes to the highest value room. Yes, James. Because in Python, if you specify the index -1, it starts off from 0 and it goes backwards. Okay, it wraps back round. Okay, so if we run that now, you can see, oh, cable car station. Move -1, that's equivalent to saying move 3. It's the same thing. Okay? But really what we want to do is we want our program to sort of catch these errors and basically tell the user, oi, you can't do that. Even if it's a programmer's fault, we want the game to be able to say to them, no, we don't, stop that now. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. Inside here we are going to have what's called some validation. That validation is going to work out whether or not we're trying to move to a room that doesn't exist, and then print out an error if that's the case. Okay, so there's a number of ways that we could do it. We could say if position is less than 0 or position is greater than len rooms, print error. Room index out of bounds, player has not moved. Okay, this is just us putting in some checks to make sure that the program doesn't crash. Okay, it won't do what we want it to do, but at least it will still be running. Okay, so if I run that now with some test data, let's do a quick, I'll tell you what, we will print rooms player pause name, and then we will move -1. That shouldn't let us move. Let's just double check as well that we're still in the same place, and then we will try and move 4, because that doesn't exist either, and let's just double check that that still leaves us in the same place, right? If we run that code now, we got an error. Why have we got an error? Room index out of bounds. If position is less than 0 or position is greater than len rooms. Oh, greater than or equal to len rooms, because the highest index is always one less. There's me being a muppet. Now what I could have done there was pretended that I put that error in the first place, but we still got an error. Oh, why are we still getting this error? Okay, there's nothing wrong with my check now. But why am I still getting the error? How can I fix it to remove this error? No one knows. Well, no, we want to keep that in there because what we want to happen is for it to just say error room index out of bounds. And if you have a look, it is actually doing that. It's telling us that the error's out of bounds, but we're still getting the list index out of range. What should happen is, in fact, if I just comment that out, it will work with this one. Still doesn't give us the intended output, okay? Because it says player has not moved, but the player has moved. Does that give you a clue as to what's causing this error? Alex is onto something here. Yes, Alex is quite right. Um, we've just said if that position, if the position's like not right, then we're going to print this error. But then we still end up changing the position anyway, which is the cause of the error. So what we want to do is say else, and we only want to change the player position if that is not the case there. Okay, so if I run it now, you can see we haven't moved. We're still inside the log cabin, right? If I just uncomment these lines here, even with move 4, which would normally be out of bounds, we're still fine. Yeah. Okay. There's a better way of doing this as well. If position is less than 0 or position is greater than or equal to len rooms, we could say if not 0 is less than or equal to position is less than len rooms. I like that way. I think that's a little bit nicer. Not everyone would agree with me, but do you see what's going on there? So 0 is less than or equal to position, which itself is less than the length of the rooms list. So that's basically saying if position is in between these two values, and then we've got a not in front of it. So we're saying if the position here is not in between these two values. Does that make sense? Okay. Cool. Right. Well, we've been rocking and rolling for over an hour now, apparently. Have we? Because it's like nearly 1:30, which means well, how much have we done? We've done part 1, part 2, and the first part of part 3. But it's my hope that just with this stuff that I've gone over, you should feel more confident with going through the rest of the code, and also hopefully you've picked up the way that I'm testing my code as I go through it. So it's not just because if I didn't have any of that in there, right? If I got rid of that, when I run my program, it ain't going to do anything, because like all we've done is define a whole bunch of stuff. We haven't actually told it to do something. The important thing is your programs aren't necessarily going to do anything unless you actually test them, right? So you just need to have some test code similar to that as you go through. Okay. Now what I'll do in the next video, which is on Wednesday, I'll show you a way that you can tidy up this move function to avoid using global variables, and we will have a look at the function to show description and to read the player input as well. We'll see how that is likely to work, and that should really, after that, should just be a case of, well, get some descriptions in there, have a move around. Some of you might want to add functionality to be able to pick up objects and stuff like that. But I will leave that to you. Okay. I'm not expecting this to be finished by the end of the week, but what I'd like to see by the end of the week is some progress made on it. Okay. So even if your code's not finished or not working, get something uploaded to me by the end of the week. But we are going to have a video about this on Wednesday. carrying on with that. Hopefully, this has all been useful to you all. Um, if it hasn't, then let me know. If it has, then I don't know. Also, let me know or whatever. That's it. Okay, go and have something to eat. Unless anyone's got any burning questions that they want to ask. Je mange mercury. Is that the French word for mercury? Is there any way to use PyCharm without the .idea folder being created? No, the .idea folder is it's the PyCharm IDE config folder. It's your project folder essentially, but you don't need that in order to run the Python files, if you know what I mean. What is a global variable? A global variable is a variable which exists throughout the entire scope of the program. So you can see here I created player position, and I change player position in this function. Ordinarily, if I was messing around with some player position variable inside this function, it wouldn't necessarily change the main function there. Generally, they're a bad thing, and I would advise against using them. But in order to get this working in a quick and easy way, I've sort of broken those rules a little bit, so I apologise there. How do I make GitHub ignore it? You should be able to select the files that you commit. And that, my friends, is that. So, yes, moe wa mo shinderu. And with that,